in my life. Just wanted to remind you that, we work on drainage in the back of Windsor Hills, and you guys are always wonderful to respond. So I want to make sure you put that by your computer so you don't forget me.
I will.
But the second thing I wanted to ask was, I know they're going to be going around flushing out the fire hydrants. And sometimes we have floods and sometimes we have droughts. Why don't we capture all this water that's being released out into the streets and into the ditches? Is there a possibility? I mean, it's almost like a fire truck, but backwards. And either put them on these ponds that the township keeps getting people asking about the lower levels. I don't know, it just seems to me like it's a big waste of water when they're getting flushed and they're just running forever and ever for days. And it happens through the entire Woodlands area. And I didn't know if that had ever been addressed or thought about. I don't know what machinery that requires. I have no idea. I just think it's a waste of water.
Mhm.
And the other thing I did notice on your agenda, item number 14, I definitely like it. I definitely support there being some sort of linkage. I know the township is trying to get a TxDOT grant to help with the monies to try to connect some sort of bike shared path from the east side to the west side. And I do feel bad that Harper's feels like it's isolated all the way over there on the other side of a highway that gets so much traffic. So that's a win-win for everybody. And I just wanted to put a good word in for that to try to support the township on, hopefully we'll get some funding for it. Okay, that was it.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Okay, number 3, consider an act on request for adjustments to or relief from specific charges imposed by the district.
Nothing for me, Heather.
Okay. The consent agenda. Are there any items that any directors would like to have removed for further discussion? If not, do we have a motion to approve the consent?
So moved.
agenda? Second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Regular agenda number 10, receive the San Jack report.
Good afternoon. Checking real quick. In your package on pages 42 through 45 are updates on the Bear Branch projects. So we're talking about the low flow vault. You have the weekly monitoring report in there. And then page 42 on the actual Bear Branch drainage project. I don't know if y'all had a time to look at that beforehand, but rather than repeat everything, if you have any questions, we can run through those. Basically, everything's on schedule, on budget, or on schedule, under budget.
I just have one question. I just curiosity, but we keep all this graffiti keeps showing up. Is there any cameras or anything there that can track that down?
There are none.
Okay, just curious.
There's been a conversation about that last year. And one of the reasons for the report from David Sidney is to kind of monitor the activity and then come back to each of the MUDs and determine whether it's worth spending the money to put cameras out there.
I totally understand that. I'm just curious.
So the other item I do have is, in front of you, you should have one of these. This is our 10-year project plan. So I have for you a PowerPoint presentation that we printed. If not, let me know. I will get that to you. So this is the annual project plan that we bring to you. This is all the detail that I'm going to cover, but in a high level summary. So I'm not going to go through this document. This is for y'all to keep, take with you, read, review, ask questions on, and so on and so forth. What I do want to do is spend a little bit of time going through the actual paper with you. What I'm going to do is this document is about 30-something pages long. Only the first 20 is actually going to be talked about. The rest of it's reference material. It's also the first 10 pages is stuff we've already talked about every single year. So I'm going to kind of go through that at a fast clip. So if you have any questions, just let me know. First 3 pages talk about the level of service. What we start with is showing some headlines from around the state of Texas with aging infrastructure, entities that did not maintain their system in a proactive approach, more of a reactive approach. And that's just a reminder that the 10-year project plan is a proactive approach to maintaining the system before things break and before they go out of service. Pages 3 and 4 talk about the level of service that y'all have desired from us. And then page 4 talks about the level of service that y'all have experienced. One of the key factors there is on the bottom left, which is limited snow service interruptions. A lot of entities throughout the state, whether it's on a day like today or through a storm, they don't have water and or sewer service. Under Storm Uri, there was about 15 million Texans had no water service. For the Woodlands, it was just another day. So that's another reason the project plan is done like it is to aim to keep that going. Pages 5, 6, and 7 talk about the asset management plan and how we design or plan for projects. Three main factors we use is the likelihood of an asset to fail, the consequence of that asset failing, any mitigating factors to the likelihood of failing or the consequence of failing. Spare parts, contracts, redundancy, so on and so forth is taken into consideration. There's about 7,500 assets every year we score on these items. And then from that, we determine, as you can see on page 7, where they need to fall for replacement. So the higher the number as we score, the sooner it needs to be replaced. Page 8 is a high level overview of how our design and selection process goes. This is a question we're asked occasionally is this going to be bid out? Are you going after proposals? That's what this process shows. Anything over $25,000 for design or construction goes out on the street. We have a $50,000 design job or a $15 million job, all of it goes on the street. Now, when it comes to construction, we don't use low bid. In very, very rare cases will we. We actually use a competitive seal proposal, which is a combination of cost and qualifications. What we're looking for is if you get low bid, you get what you pay for. But we want to make sure whoever we're paying to do something, they give us a good price, but also they know what they're doing. It's not their first time painting a house or something. Page 9. These are the focus areas of the 10-year project plan. On the left-hand side is the wastewater system. The wastewater system is everything we've talked about during the strategic plan. I'm not going to spend a lot of time recapping that because the numbers we talked about during the strategic plan were brought forward into this document. On the right-hand side, you see the water system. By the way, these pictures are River Authority assets that have been pulled out of the ground. So these are local pictures too. On the right-hand side is a picture of AC pipe. Crack in the middle is where a collar's broken off. But water system main focus area is going to be the asbestos cement or AC water lines we've talked about for the last 2 to 3 years. Those lines are approaching 50 years old and the service life is 50 years. So what we've added in on page 10 is a lot of times we'll go through this document and we'll get these type of presentations. We'll give a lot of information out, but we don't actually tell you what we're looking for from y'all. So we've added in what we call the ask. What are we asking? So ask number 1 is to understand the funding that is needed for the cash funded or R&R portion of the project. That starts on page 11 and is carried over to page 12. So on page 11, what you're going to see is a high-level summary of this bound document for the R&R or cash portion of the plan. These are assets that are less than 30 years in life, and they're typically around 15, maybe 20 years of life. Now, what you'll see on page 12 is total project plan, the total R&R portion of the project plan is $83 million. We have $21 million cash on hand. So when you reduce that 83 by the 21, you end up with $62 million. Why that matters is currently the R&R portion is funded through the O&M budget at $6 million a year. You take that $6 million times 10 years, $60 million. We brought this to your attention because with $62 million worth of cash funded needs over the next 10 years, we believe the $6 million that's currently in the budget will sustain us going forward. So every year, just keep that $6 million instead of increasing it at all. Page 13 is ask number 2. At a future board meeting, authorize SJRA to sell debt for water and wastewater capital replacement. Project replacement. Page 14 goes into a little bit more detail about what ask number 2 is. And this ask number 2 kind of shows the same process for ask number 1 as well for any project. When you approve a project, you're approving preliminary design, geotechnical survey, land acquisition in some cases, design, construction, everything all together. It's not just as simple as, oh, they're going to go build a new water line. It's everything that's tied to it. So we want to show a little bit more detail and just kind of explain the things that are actually going to be approved. So that's what page 14 is. Pages 15 through 19 relate to AC water lines. So on page 15, on the right-hand side, you can see an age profile. This shows when all the various water lines in the Woodlands were installed. You can see right around 1970, or from 1973 to about 1984, 1985, the AC lines were installed. 50-year lifespan. The lines installed in 1973 are at the end of their service life. Left-hand side of page 15, you can see our concerns with the AC water lines. Besides the service life, the other big one is wet and dry weather does affect AC lines. As the ground moves, it's a very rigid pipe, it breaks those colors. Page 16, the map that you see, all the colored lines are the AC lines throughout the Woodlands. As you can see, they start pretty much around Cochrane's Crossing and go east from there. Each of the different colored segments represents a different phase of construction. So it's a 12-year plan for construction. So you have, I think it's 10 different segments in there, and they're roughly done every other year. Another one would be designed and constructed and so on and so forth. What we paired that with is down at the bottom, I'm sorry, on page 17. Page 17 shows the break history of the AC lines across the Woodlands. We've done this to show how they are increasing slightly over the years, which corresponds to them getting older. So on page 16, you see the segments. Dots represent breaks. On page 17, you track from 2015 to 2022, the various breaks we've had. One thing to keep in mind is river authority lines start at 12 inches and they go up to 30 inches with AC lines. So when you have lines of that size go out, generally somebody's going to be out of water. Just depends on where and where on how many people are going to be out of water. I had a PVC line go out a couple years ago and there's about 1,000 people out of water for about 12 hours. So page 18 are the recommendations. It's to replace all 48 miles of the AC water lines over a 10 to 12 year period. It's 10 to 12 because 10 years is the financing period. Construction would last 12 years. Right now, we're kind of looking at 30-year bonds that are issued every 3 to 4 years and replacing the AC pipe with HDPE pipe. It's very similar to PVC, but it's a little bit more flexible and it's fused together. So you have less joints, less opportunity for leaks. The last bullet you see on page 18, monitor the Woodlands Parkway PVC line. This is the PVC line that was installed around 2002. And it runs from on Woodlands Parkway from Kirkendall to 2978. Okay. Line should last at least 70 years. It's been in the ground 20 years. And for about 5 years, we had 3 to 4 breaks a year. So we had taken this line and put it on the 5-year project plan to actually be designed next year, then constructed in 25. Over the last 18 months, we have not had any breaks. So what we've done is we've taken this line and pushed it out to 2033, and we're going to monitor it. As long as it continues like it's going, we'll just keep pushing it off. But if it starts to have another rash of breaks, we'll bring it back to y'all and say, okay, what do y'all want to do? Y'all want to repair it, replace it? What's your choice? Page 19 is more information on the AC water lines. Question comes up. Sometimes that folks want to have a certain number of breaks before it's repaired. This is just saying if we kick the can down the road, or if we want to get to a certain metric where you have 5 breaks per mile before you repair it, these are some impacts. It'll cost more, traffic impacts, public out of water, so on and so forth. That's what page 19 is. All right, so get to page 20. Page 20 gets everything and brings it all together. So on the water system, long-term financing project summary, water systems looks at $230 million. Wastewater is $320 million. Wastewater system will be adjusted as we go through phase 2 of the strategic plan. This is just put in at the high level cost of what the phase 1 of the strategic plan had. Since everybody knew what that number was, didn't feel like we wanted to modify it, just dropped it in just like everybody's seen. On the water system side, the bulk of it is going to be the AC lines. We do have the Woodlands Parkway line in there since it is in the plan. Water well number 40, it is a new well to the system, but we're also looking to decommission 3 wells as well. So we take 3 out, put 1 in its place. Page 21 brings everything together. Earlier, we talked about the cash funded R&R portion. Page 20, we talked about long-term financing. That's what you see on 21, is when you put all the various 4 fundings together for water, wastewater, cash funded bond, everything else. Total project plan you're looking at for the next 10 years is 632 million. With that 632 million, we do have $21 million cash on hand we're going to use towards it, as well as $25 million in bonds from 2017 we're going to use towards it. So it cuts some off, not a big chunk of it, but we also do expect the wastewater side to drop down as well. But in any case, it is 500 million plus. Last thing is on page 22. Page 22 is basically trying to show that 632 million is a lot of money, but it does only represent 31% of the cost of the overall system. River Authority's entire Woodland system has a replacement cost of $2 billion. The next time you're looking at this many major things hitting at one time is around 2050. So what we're looking at is we go through, replace the AC water lines, replace wastewater plant 1, 25, 30-year bond. Hopefully by the time those are paid off, then we'll start talking about PVC lines and wastewater plant 2. Now looking at in 2040 to come back and say, hey, I need another 500 million. So it appears there's enough time to maybe pay down some bonds and stuff before you have to go. High level overview, no action is needed today. Next month, we'll present the budget and we'll have the R&R in there. And if you have any questions now, I can answer them, or next month or the month after, whenever.
Okay. Any questions for Chris?
Good plan,
Yeah.
good presentation.
Thank you. Try to keep it quick. I know y'all see this every year, but it's a lot of money, so.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. The question I might have is the impact on our tax rates. And I'll direct that to Peter Bryan, as far as how do we historically finance this kind of thing?
So that's been asked by a number of directors. And I think the Riverville is working on a rate analysis right now for the impact it would have on the wholesale rates. And then we will, as water, will look at how we pass that wholesale rate on to our customers. And most likely because of Senate Bill 2 and what that's done to restrict the ability of most of the Woodlands MUDs to generate additional operation and maintenance tax revenue. As appraised values go up, that ability has really been removed by and large by Senate Bill 2 for developed districts, that we're most likely going to have to handle most of this through our retail rate. So we've worked, and there's going to be a big public outreach. Eric's already working on getting that teed up. It's going to be a couple-year process before we want to start implementing those rates.
It is. Once we have kind of an idea of what the wholesale rates would be from SGRA, we're then going to identify how we're going to, like Brian said, how are we going to put that into our rate structure for our customers. Essentially a pass through, but still there's certain ways you can do it, different ways you can do it. But
So long and short of it, we'll split between the tax rate and the water rate, but mostly on the water rate.
Water sewer, it could be a separate dedicated charge, and there's pros and cons to that versus just adding it to the tiered rates. But we'll kind of get to that as we get deeper into the rate considerations.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? If not, thanks, Chris. Okay.
Yeah.
No, next one would be number 11, receive update regarding the status of the Bear Branch, Panther Branch and Research Forest Drive Drainage Improvement Project and authorize any action in connection therewith. Do we have any updates on that?
The update is on page 42 in your packet. They chatted about it.
I sent Eric, 2 days ago, because I had asked our guys, okay, we're 13% into it financially and 33% complete, what do we got to show for it? And they're still building the existing models in the computer. And so what I sent to Eric was some screenshots of the computer showing where all the cross sections have been taken, where the major, I'll say, road crossings are of Bear Branch and Panther Branch. We have a meeting next month. It's in person. So they'll walk us through the model and what they've got done on the existing conditions so far. But they've, as you can see financially, they've spent 132,000, almost 133,000 out of $1,300,000, $1,300,000. So they're making some progress.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're having regular meetings with them. And we hope that this one page summary gives you the information that you all have been asking for. If not, let us know. We'll figure out what else to add to it.
So you're satisfied with the progress that we're making, you know,
Yeah.
on,
And we knew it was going to take on around to September, October.
Mhm. Okay. Any questions for Ed? Anything else, Ed?
Actually, they showed a contract ending on December 29th. But we'll have something to work from so that we can kick off the Bear Branch Dam Spillway project August, September.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
That's our,
Thank you.
thank you.
Brian, attorney's report.
Yes, sir. Pretty much all legislative session all the time right now in Austin. So they are hot and heavy. There's about a month and a half left to go before we close in session. Not much has been passed. A lot has been introduced. So there are a number of hearings right now. We've got our partners that are registered lobbyists that are at the Capitol pretty much full time right now to both pursue legislation that clients have asked us to handle, as well as assist AWBD in kind of monitoring bills of interest for the water district community. So I kind of went through a summary of today's report. While you can watch that if you're interested in any, some particular bills, or if you have other bills that you have of interest, feel free to let me know, and I'll do my best to get answers for you.
Okay.
That's all I have on the attorney's report.
Okay. Any questions for Brian? Thanks, Brian. Consider an act on the Harper's Landing shared use path proposed. Oh, yeah. Consider an adoption of resolution concerning developed district status for 2023.
This is that annual resolution that declares whether or not you are developed or developing. That matters because it determines which rollback rate you're subject to, the 3.5% or the 8%. Y'all have been developing, and according to LJA, continue to be a developing district for motion without the resolution for your 2023 status.
Okay, do we have and a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. Now, 14, consider an act on Harper's Landing shared use path proposed by the Woodlands Township along State Highway 242.
Yes, so if you turn to page 52, there's a little bit of this map there. I was approached by the township asking for support in their endeavor to try to get a grant. For the township to go after a grant to help them fund a proposed pathway that would be proposed on the south side of 242. And it would go from essentially 1488 all the way to 45, across 45, and then up into Harper's Landing. It affects 4 Woodlands MUDs, 46, 47, 67, and Metro. 2 of the MUDs have had meetings and agreed to support it. And so the township has asked if 67 would be interested in supporting it. They would ask for a letter of support from me. And I've confirmed that we don't need 4 different letters for each MUD, just one with whomever supports it. So they're asking for your support, if you will.
And what does that support mean?
For them to go after a grant, TXDOT grant to help them fund the actual construction of the pathway. A pathway, as I learned, was essentially a sidewalk that is 12 to 15 feet wide. So it's a little wider than your normal 8 to 10 or so in the Woodlands. But it would essentially allow a pathway for the residents along 242 to get not only from Harper's Landing, but also get to the commercial and the medical facilities that are up and down 242 there.
And is this 100% grant? Is that what they're looking for?
I don't know the detail on the specifics of the grant.
Will there be any financial obligation on the MUD's part if,
No.
no? Okay.
No. And in addition to that, because one of the things I was interested in was where are our facilities in relation to the pathway itself? And if we needed to go in to repair a water line or a sewer line or what have you, whose responsibility would be to replace or fix the repair of the pathway? And the township said it would be their responsibility to fix the pathway. So if we need to go in for some reason to fix one of our lines.
Okay.
So it doesn't look like there's any financial obligation to the MUD.
Okay. What do the thinner red lines on here represent?
Those look to be track boundaries.
Those just boundaries? Okay. Okay. Any discussion? Is there a motion to support this, I guess, resolution?
I move to support.
Okay. Yes. Second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Would you like to see a draft before it goes out? I'll certainly give you a letter once it's completed. It's up to you.
Would you like to see a copy of it?
No,
Yeah.
I want to know there's confirmation that we're
I
not
think it-
financially responsible.
Okay, I'll provide that one at the next meeting then.
Okay, that's good enough. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Pete. Okay, and you want to continue with the general manager?
Sure. Good afternoon. A few other items. Want us to update you on the One Water task force. The township did meet and did vote to resurrect the task force. So we've met with the township to just have a preliminary discussion on some ideas. I think what we all agree is that it's going to be critical to identify what the goals and focus of the task force are going to be once it gets resurrected, and kind of some of the players that will be involved. So more to come on that over the next months as we start to build that up. Wanted to give you an update on the settlement with TACUS. That agreement has been completed and we have come to settlement with them. So what we're going to be doing is providing a pro rata of the proceeds and any remaining costs that were associated with the damages, and we'll prorate those through the MUDs. So you'll start to see some of that coming back.
What was the pushback from them? I'm sorry. What was the pushback from them for not reimbursing at all?
I can't necessarily speak to that. I don't know.
Anything else, Pete?
Yeah, a few more things, sorry. Couple other things in your packet. There's a summary that we received on page. Starting on page 59, that is a summary of Montgomery County Appraisal District's salaries, salary structure for their employees. And so I've made some changes to the existing salary structure, mainly with just moving positions around. We understand there's no change to the bottom line or the budget for this year. So no changes in that regard, just telling us kind of how the different categories have changed. So that's it. Want to let you know there's some years of service recognition that we'd like to share with you. Maureen hitting her 25-year mark. Absolutely. And then Tony Rendon in our field as a field supervisor reached 41 years.
Wow.
So but
That's unusual.
it's
Yeah.
quite a big accomplishment for sure. Just point out a few articles that are in your packet. One is on lead service lines, which you're going to be hearing more about over the next year or so, related to the lead and copper EPA rules. And so just an article on that. And then PFAS, which are some chemicals that will be dangerous chemicals that are kind of hitting the news a little bit more right now. You can read about that. And then there's a few things related to the strategic communication plan that John is implementing through the PEC. So that's moving forward. And then just a quick update on some trustee stuff. The PEC is scheduled to meet next week on the 26th. As you heard a minute ago from Chris and SGRA, there's some significant infrastructure changes that are going to be coming down the pipe. And I think everyone recognizes that a strong public education outreach program is going to be necessary. And so we're working with the SGRA to build that up. We're looking at possibly hiring an outside PR firm to help with that. So we're working on an RFP for that. And we'll be talking about that a little bit next week in the PEC meeting. And then last thing I had was at the trustee meeting, the personnel committee made a recommendation to trustees, approved the recommendation to modify the WWA holiday schedule. And so the results of that are in 2023. We will be adding Veterans Day as a recognized holiday, and then we will keep the floating holiday that we have in place now for 2023. In 2024, we'll add MLK, residents, and veterans, and we will remove the floating holiday. So that will bring the net recognized holidays from 10 to 12, and that will create some consistency with area-wide municipalities and what holidays that they are recognizing. Particularly SGRA and some, we looked at 6 or 7 other area-wide municipalities and what they're doing. So that was.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else then? Okay, thanks, Pete. Trustees report, since Paul's not here, Pete, do you have anything you want to highlight? Otherwise, it's all pretty much in the.
Yeah, those were really the two main things from the trustees meeting.
Okay, then moving on to 17, do we need to recess for anything? We don't. So that means we don't reconvene. Is there any items that a director would like to add to a future agenda?
I have a question. They gave us a resolution authorizing additional penalty on delinquent real estate funds.
That was a consent agenda. Yes, sir. That's an annual item.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, it's just housekeeping. Okay. With that then, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Nice to sign this.
And that one. This